Hi, I'm John, and welcome back to Dice Paper Miniatures. In this episode, I kick off a new series I'm working on that's featuring each of the 18 legions that players can play in the upcoming Warhammer the Horus Heresy. Now, the framework I'm using for this series is basically looking at what the Warhammer community is presenting in each of these 18 articles. The lore, the general look and feel of the legion, and of course, its rule mechanics that they're willing to tease at this point. And then maybe down the road, I might have a follow-up as to how accurate I think that these articles presented each of the individual legions. But that would be a series for another time. All right, so again, that's the premises or framework for this series. I'm really excited to get started. And in this episode, I'm going to be featuring the White Scars. All right, let's begin. Visuals alone, I'd probably go with the White Scars pretty much 10 out of 10 times. This particular chapter in 40K, I always thought was really badass, and they're just as cool in 30K or in the Horus Heresy. So it says, the White Scars ride like the wind. Every great general, be they Astartes or mortal, understands that the essence of victory is not in self-important parades and brittle battle plans. It is the unpredictable and uncompromising to be as cunning and swift as a steely-eyed shadow and fall upon your foes like a thunderbolt. The White Scars exemplify this creed to the point that, until the last days of the Horus Heresy, no one even really knew what side they were on. What comparatively few Space Marines know, however, is that to reach the true pinnacle of tactical brilliance, you must be able to pop a totally sweet wheelie while firing your bolter on full auto. Yep, exactly. Facts are facts. That's right. We're leaving the sluggish grumblers of the Iron Warriors to their slow-moving and unflippable tanks as we continue our guide to the Legiones Astartes with the White Scars. Yeah, they are a seriously sweet-looking chapter. Legion. Yeah, very cool. Much like the fancy lads of the Dark Angels, the 5th Legion first saw action during the Unification Wars. While the other legions were plotting across Terra, these road warriors were using their aptitude for the hunt to ferret dug-in warlords out of their holds. Even when the Great Crusade kicked off, they were split into countless pioneer companies, racing out to discover exotic worlds, meet unusual people, and then kill them. Oh, yowzas. Throughout the Great Crusade, the White Scars were like totally headstrong free spirits, man. They frequently ignore the commands of anyone below the Emperor himself, certain that they knew best. Their love of speed was matched only by their unflagging self-confidence, and the Legion's no-scope 720 tactics came to define their attitude to combat. While they did continue to employ stifling Terminator armor and moribund dreadnoughts, they did so with a sense of obligation and one-eyed on the open road. So here is the Primarch, Jedediah Khan, and the thing is, it is a cool model as well, just like all the other Primarchs we've seen from Forge World so far. The only hang-up I have is that this is actually one of the later sculpts for Primarchs that came from Forge World, and arguably it doesn't necessarily match the look, I think, of the artwork. At least in terms of the face. It's supposed to have more of a Mongolian visage, I think, with a different type of, not like a standard European style goatee, but kind of like the Fu Manchu with like the center strip, just a more Mongolian style facial hair. And I know it's a minor thing, but that and some of the other armor elements, again, looks cool, just doesn't fit a lot of the established artwork, in my opinion. That was my only kind of complaint when this model came out. But again, I mean, it's still a cool model. And then we have the Legion here. I think, so in case you didn't know, most of these armies that we're seeing in these Legion previews were painted by other YouTube community folks, right? And they're all really cool, admittedly. I know I gave the Iron Warriors one a little bit of a razz because they didn't do like the must-have hazard stripes nowhere on the Terminators, at least. And that was kind of weird, I thought. We'll just say it's a bold move, Cotton. If you're in the US, you know what that means. But I kind of feel the same way with the representations of the white scars here, I think they needed to have more red elements on their armor. Outside of that, they're painted amazingly well, obviously. Especially, I dig the Praetor for sure, and I think, yeah, both Praetors look really cool. I just would have liked to have seen more red elements. Yeah, very cool looking army. So for the rules, the White Scars' love of the wind whipping through their top knots is enshrined in the new edition of Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, with a suite of high-speed rules. Want to trade the whining of your foot sloggers for the lovely purr of a powerful engine? Select Chagorian Brotherhood. Every time I see Chagorian, I want to read it Chodorian. It's just like Chode. Total Beavis and Butthead reference, but I can't help it. It just reads as like Chodorian. All right. Anyways, Chagorian Brotherhood as your right of war to field an entire army of speed demons, each biker competing to catch the sweetest air. All right. Right of war, Chagorian Brotherhood. Legion Skyhunter squadrons and Legion Outrider squadrons may be selected as troop choices in a detachment using the right of war, and such units gain the line unit subtype. Legion Skyhunter squadrons and Legion Outrider squadrons may also be selected as elites choices in a detachment using this right of war, though these units do not gain the line subtype. Interesting. All models with the infantry unit type in a detachment using this right of war gain the outflank special rule. So that one's a bit of a tricky one to break down, again, because we've kind of been led to believe that just bodies, tons of tactical space marines are kind of the bread and butter of your legion. And it makes sense, especially with the white scars, how they favor bikes, right? So to make them line units, it's hard to know if that's going to be really good or really bad. I don't think there's probably much of an in-between. It could be really OP. I guess it just depends on the vehicle rules, right, for the bikes. But I'm inclined to think it could be pretty strong. It probably really, it's another one of those armies that probably has either a low floor and a high ceiling as far as like the skill cap and the skill of the players. So if you're really good at positioning those bikes, you're probably going to be doing some amazing stuff on the battlefield. But it could be pricey because, again, I'm sure the bikes compared to just your normal cost of infantry there's going to be definitely a price difference there. All right, so like every good legion, the White Scars take their defining trait to the hilt. Of course, you can field infantry, but why would you? A warlord born to the saddle can juice his riding skills to the point that his troops will be doing rad wheel flicks and bar spins through even the roughest terrain and making surprise reaction moves with deadly synchronicity. All right, so let's see this born to the saddle. This warlord and all models in the same army with the Legiones Astartes White Scar special rule and the cavalry unit type ignore all the effects of difficult terrain and gain a 4+ invulnerable save against all wounds inflicted by failed, dangerous terrain tests they are called upon to make. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. In addition, an army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase, as long as the warlord has not been removed as a casualty. So we just didn't get an advanced reaction rule for the White Scars. I don't know what I think about that. A little bit of two minds. I like what I'm seeing here, but in the other previews we've had so far, there have been like basically two normal reactions and then an advanced reaction. So I'm not sure if it's just, do the White Scars just not have an advanced reaction? I don't know. I wonder. Jagatai Khan is the Primarch and the homeworld is Chagoras, which again, I just think it looks like Chode to me. All right. That aside, if you know one thing about Jagatai Khan, know this, he whips. Punted onto the Great Plains of Chagoras as a mere babe, Jagatai quickly established himself as a peerless warrior ruled by none. Within decades, he had conquered the planet's nomadic tribes, overthrown its imperious rulers, and crowned himself Khan of Khans, a master of refined culture and hit-and-run tactics alike. As we said, he's rad. Yeah, he is. I think visually it's a rad legion. I think the Primarch's rad looking, even if the armor from Forge World, in my mind, and the facial features don't match what he should look like. It's a cool model, just whatever. And I think the tactics that are available to the White Scars could be pretty OP. I just wonder if it might be a pricey legion to run. In any event, soon the Great Crusade came to Jagoras, and the man who had toppled one empire found himself bending the knee to another. Whatever his feelings on the emperor, the Khan became firm friends with Horus Lupercal, who'd worked closely with the 5th Legion. And honestly, he was just glad to be back in the saddle. It turns out that being Khan of Khans involves a lot of paperwork. All of a sudden, that kind of makes me think of like Naruto wanting to be the Hokage, and then he becomes the Hokage and he's just like bored out of his skull. Anyways, total tangent. Many in the Imperium considered Jagatai and his warriors to be crude barbarians. In turn, the Great Khan considered most in the Imperium to be his ignorant curls. A shrewd tactician, a master swordsman, and a wise judge of character, Jagatai valued honesty over rigid protocol and actions over words. No wonder he got under Fulgrim's skin. With his legion, he fostered a culture of keen initiative and personal discipline, plus, and we really must stress this, he's a sick biker. Yeah, we got it. He likes to ride. Yeah, I dig that art too. The Horus Heresy set the galaxy aflame, but the White Scars, usually fashionably early to any fight, nearly missed the party. Occupied with campaigns far beyond the Imperium's borders, the Khan found himself faced with a barrage of fake news. Even when the Space Wolves demanded his aid, Jagatai decided to fact-check before picking a side. Best of luck, layman. The Khan's ruthless streak, he did, after all, skewer the heads of his enemies outside his tents on Chagoras, would have made him an asset to the traitor cause. Unfortunately for Horus, it wasn't meant to be. Jagatai sought answers on Prospero, home of the Thousand Suns, where he learned the truth from a specter of Magnus the Red. Even when members of his own legion declared for Horus, lured by the secret handshakes and team-building exercises of the warrior lodges, if you've read the Horus Heresy, you know those references, dueling Mortarion, his smelliest brother, to make his allegiance clear. We haven't talked about Mortarion yet, unless you saw one of the other videos, but in any event. All right, so here we have an example that was painted probably from the heavy metal team. If not, it sure didn't look like this was one of the ones in that group shot, because this one clearly has more of that red I was kind of speaking about. I dig this. It has just enough red elements. Definitely kind of contributes to that kind of tribal patterns that we see historically with the White Scars. Yeah, great looking model. The White Scars spent most of the heresy engaged in a ruthless hit-and-run campaign against traitor lines. Eventually, the Great Khan rode through the webway itself, an unprecedented act for a human, to discuss strategy with his brothers on Terra. He exasperated them all with his desire for a more proactive approach, but let Dorn, Russ, and the rest have their way for a time. Yeah, such a great looking legion. Just for that point alone, it gets a lot of points in my books for a consideration. Determined to remain ungovernable, the Khan continued to harass the traitor forces by any means he could. Like a tired dad whose child has heard an ice cream van, Rogel Dorn relented during the siege of Terra and let Jagatai off the leash to do what he did best, leading hundreds of jet bikes in a brutal assault against the ground pounders of the Death Guard. Like so many battles fought by the White Scars, it was a merciless strike that turned certain defeat into lightning victory. At one point, Jagatai threw a Leviathan clean over his shoulder. He even got a second round in with his heretical brother, who was now looking decidedly unwell. Yeah, Mortarion started looking not so good with the blessings of Nurgle. So a little bit more lore here. So capricious, reserved, and sometimes downright flaky, the Khan is a man of many mysteries. Scars is an ideal place to start exploring the Jagatai's fierce spirit and personal code, as the Alpha Legion launched an attack that forced the Primarch of the White Scars to pick a side. Who did he prefer? His pops or his bro? Well, spoiler, his pops. So yeah, Path of Heaven provides a real taste of how the 5th Legion fights, as they blaze a trail of breathtaking battles on the long road back to Terra, after which Warhawk pits Jagatai against his bigger, tougher, and much uglier brother, Mortarion, at the very gates of the throne world. For an earlier look at the Legion, Jagatai Khan Warhawk of Chagoras depicts the White Scars at the height of the Great Crusade, as the Khan tries to balance the dangers of psychic legionaries with the appeal of sick lightning powers. Alright, and then of course, we have another video on how to paint your Mark VI White Scars. So yeah, that is a little bit of lore a little bit of imagery, and a little bit of rules for your White Scar Legion. Again, personally, this is very high on my list of a consideration, especially if I was playing Loyalist. I've made this comment in other videos. If I were doing Loyalists, probably my preferred Legion would be Blood Angels. That was who I started playing Warhammer 40k with back in the late 80s. I would have to say, outside of the Blood Angels, I do like the Dark Angels. I liked them more when they were when I played them as the Deathwing and Space Hulk, admittedly. But there's something about the White Scars that kind of sets them apart from all the other Loyalists, and in some ways, all the other Legions. And they're just really cool. That said, if you haven't saw my other videos yet that kind of go into specifically what I want to play, I'm leaning more towards Traitor and probably the World Eaters. But again, if I were to go Loyalists, I'd probably go White Scars. They are super rad looking. If I were to do a second Legion, if I go World Eaters like I intend to, especially since I just ordered Angron, my concern would be, would these play too much like World Eaters? But World Eaters kind of rely being on foot, I think, whereas these guys rely more on their bikes. So even though they're both supposed to be kind of like close assault, hit and run tactics, they do things differently, I think, enough. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's so expensive to get in this game. I don't really know if I can swing more than one Legion, at least not well. And I may want to go with something with completely different play styles, more of a shooty faction. All right, well, that's it for this one. What do you think are the pros and cons of the White Scars? Do you like the fact that they kind of guide you into more of a vehicle-centric build? Or would you consider still trying to make them more of a standard rank and flank, if you will, style infantry base Legion? I mean, I feel like that would be kind of not the best move, but there may be some corner cases where that's a good thing or worth consideration at least. Otherwise, they definitely seem to have a very specific play style. So I'd be really curious to see what you think are the strengths and weaknesses of that play style, and if you're considering playing the White Scars and why. All right, well, again, if you've enjoyed this content and haven't yet, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and sharing this content with your friends. It really does help with the growth of the channel, and it's greatly appreciated. Now, as I mentioned before, these videos on the Legions for the upcoming The Horus Heresy, it's part of a series. So if you haven't yet, please consider checking out some of those other Legion videos for sure, and commenting on those as well. All right, well, as always, I hope you're doing well. Be safe, take care, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.